Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me for today's career strategy session. We are going to continue our series on negotiation today, talking about your performance review and more specifically, people who get promoted without a raise. And how do you handle that situation? And what are your options to negotiate and the factors that you should consider if you're going to negotiate? So as we get started, if you have any questions, you can pop them into the Q&A feature here, or you can email them to jvtwillie@jacquelinetwillie.com. So let me tell you a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Jacqueline Twillie. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I help women negotiate when they get job offers and around review time. The reason why I'm so passionate about this topic is because in 2016, women still earn at least 79 cents on the dollar compared to a man. When we really break those statistics down, it gets even more depressing. African American women earn somewhere around 64 cents on a dollar. Latino women earn around 53 to 52 cents on a dollar. State to state, that differs, but those averages are really depressing. Those numbers are just mind-blowing in 2016. So I'm on a mission to eliminate the gender wage gap. And one of the ways that we're going to do this is by learning how to negotiate and knowing the options that we have when we go into a work situation. All right, so let's hop into it today and talk about you got promoted, but you didn't get a raise increase. This topic I've received lots of questions on prior to this episode of the career strategy session. So I have the questions listed here, and I've tried to summarize them so that I don't have to repeat some of them. What I'm going to do is just go down issue by issue on some of the questions that I've received and address those, give you some tools and suggestions on what to do next. Now, first things first, a lot of you have said that you've already accepted a position with more responsibility, you've gotten a promotion, but you did not discuss an increase in salary at all. Is it too late for you to go back and have that discussion? No, it is not. It's not too late to go in and to talk about your compensation based on the responsibility that you have received and you've been performing on. Now, in some cases, I think this actually gives you a leg up. The reason why is because you have been working in this position for some time now. So you probably have some results that you can measure and you can speak to in terms of what you've done and the contribution that you're making to the organization. So if you aren't keeping track of the projects and assignments that you're working on, I strongly suggest that you start keeping a track of what you're working on so that at any moment you can pull this information and be able to speak to the value that you're delivering to the organization. All right? Now, as a person who is in a position where you've accepted more responsibility but you didn't have a discussion on pay, you want to informally mention that you want to have a meeting to discuss it. So whether this is over coffee, whether it's walking to lunch, in the hallway, going from meeting to meeting, say, you know, I really like to schedule some time to talk to you about this role that I'm in, and I've been reflecting on some of the things that I'm accomplishing, and I just really want to have a setting where we can discuss how I'm going to move forward. And just put it out there that you want to have a discussion. You don't have to necessarily say, I want more money and we need to talk about that ASAP, okay? Don't go in combative because the likability factors matters. When someone likes you, they're more willing to help you. We've all experienced that, okay? So with that, another way that you can approach this conversation is, hey, I have a problem. I'm wondering if you can help me. I know I've accepted this new role. I've been performing well, but I realized that, you know, we didn't even discuss the salary increase that's related to that. So I wanted to find out if we can have a discussion to discuss the metrics that will need to happen so that I can get a salary increase that's more in line with the market value for, and then give your title, the position, whatever the supervisory role that you're in, you want to go ahead and bring that up then. When you frame it from a perspective of, can you help me solve this problem? More than likely, they're going to be open to listening to you and to help you solve your problem of not being compensated for the work that you're doing. So that was the number one question that we've had from most of you before we got started as to What do I do? Can I negotiate? Yes, you can. Now, during this meeting, there are a couple of things that you need to get really specific on. So make sure you go in with a pen and paper to take notes. This is going to be more like a brainstorming session. I don't want you to go in with your mind made up automatically of how you want it to go. I want you to be open to it. But again, you ask them for their help. So really find their help in this. A couple of things that you want to discuss in this meeting is, what metrics do I need to hit in order to have a salary that's in line with the title that I have? Now, if you've been working with me for a while, you know that there are 3 sites that I recommend folks go to when they're looking for market data. The first site is payscale.com, where you can type in your title and your geographic area, your city, and you can get a salary range that is an average of what people earn for the title in the city that you're in. So the first site is payscale.com. The second site is salary.com, and the third is Glassdoor. They all do a little bit of the same thing. Some of those metrics are a little different, but what I want you to remember is you need to put in the title and the city. That matters greatly. Now, along with that, remember, this is just an average. This is not a set in stone rate. So if you know that you're above average, then you should make sure that you're going towards the higher end of that range from the data that you find online. Now, the best source of salary market value information that you can receive is from talking to peers in your industry. As I mentioned earlier, women earn less than men. You come in early if you have to. If your goal is to get that salary that's in line with the position that you've accepted, you're probably already working really hard. You just want to make sure you dot all of your I's, cross all of your T's, so that when it comes time for you to have this conversation again, whether it's during a formal review time or you've negotiated a special review time, for instance, when you land this new client, so when your company signs on a new client, then we'll have this discussion again about the salary increase. You just want to make sure you're clear on when that conversation is going to happen. And in most cases, supervisors are open to that. And especially if you nail it, you hit it out of the park on all of the metrics that you're going to be measured on, then you've built a really strong case to get more of what you want and that salary that's in line with the position that you've accepted. All right, so another question that we have is, as I'm going up for a new position, a promotion, what are some of the things that I should consider? This is a question that I've combined. It was 2 or 3 questions that I kind of put together because they were similar. So a couple of things that I want you to consider personally before accepting a new role is, why is this position open? You want to make a well-informed decision. The more information that you have up front, the better informed you'll be about the tools and resources that you need to be successful in this position. So when we talk about negotiating, you got a promotion, but you didn't get a raise, it's really important to understand the additional factors beyond the salary that you need to be successful so that you can have a conversation at a later date on the raise. One of the questions that came in said, I accepted the position of a supervisor without a raise because I knew that the company was doing cutbacks. So the company was doing some downsizing, some salary cuts, so she didn't bring it up at all. However, there are some other things that you could consider that will help you to set yourself up for success so that when the company turns a corner and starts doing better financially, you are in a position to revisit this and have another conversation. Now, even if you know your company is going through a hard time, you still want to acknowledge the fact with the person that you're accepting the position with. So whoever you're having this discussion with about the position, you want to address salary even if you know that they can't compensate you now, because you want to try to be compensated on the back end, whether it's going to be a bonus or some other type of factors. You want to make sure that you let them know that you're serious about your money, because if you don't bring it up at all, then that's letting them know that you're willing to work for less. Okay, so make sure you have some type of discussion saying, I am going to accept this position without a salary increase now, but I'm wondering, when will I be compensated? Will this be in form of a bonus or in 6 months' time when we land a new client? You just want to ask those questions to be very clear on when you can expect a salary increase for the amount of work and the responsibility that you have. So Find out, why is the position open? That's one of the things, going back to our earlier questions, what are some of the things that you should consider? Why is the position open, and what did the person who was in that position before you do? What were the metrics that they were expected to receive? Where did they go above and beyond? What were they best known for? And why did they leave that position? All of this information is really important to you because you may learn things that you need an additional staff member on your team, or you need new equipment, or your team needs additional training to hit a new goal. This is really important because as you have accepted a position, or you're going to accept a position, you want to negotiate for things that are going to make you successful in that role. So if you learn that the last supervisor or manager hit all of their metrics except for one, and the reason why is because they didn't have this training, then you'll want to negotiate very early on, okay, I really want to accept this position, but one of the things that I'm going to need is training for the team, because I want to make sure that we're successful and we're moving towards the company objectives. When you frame it in terms of what's in it for the team, what's in it for the organization, you're more likely to get the things that you want. Now, additionally, something that most people forget to ask about is the work relationships between the different supervisors. This is, sometimes people feel uncomfortable asking this, but you can come straight out and say, I'm just curious, how does the team members get along, and how does the supervisory team get along? This is going to be really important to you if you're considering accepting a new position, because you need to know how much of your time is going to be spent on office politics and how much of your time is going to be spent actually doing the work. Again, you want to ask questions that's going to set yourself up for success, and then negotiate on the back end all of those factors. So just make sure that you're open-minded and you're fully aware of what you're getting yourself into. I want to challenge you to think about this. As you're considering accepting a new position, will this new role make you happy? Or are you taking it because you like the title? Make sure that it aligns with your skill set, because if it's way outside of your comfort zone, I'm all for stretching, but if this is a totally different skill for you, for instance, I'm a career development professional. I focus mostly on career development and helping people enhance their careers. So if for some reason I decided one day I wanted to start making pizzas, that would be a bit of a stretch. So just keep that in mind. You want to stretch yourself a little, but completely jump into something that you have no experience in as a supervisor, that might be more than you can chew, and you're going to cause yourself a lot of stress and anxiety. Now, along with that, when you're considering a new role, you want to think about your long-term career goals. Is the position that you're going to accept going to fit in with your long-term goals? I'm really big on making sure that everything you do moves you one step closer to where you want to be in your career. Whether it's going to a networking event or taking on a new position at work, you want to make sure that that's going to help you get one step closer to where you want to be long-term. So be very honest with yourself. No one can answer this for you but you. And as you're going through, list the pros and cons of a new position. This is going to benefit me in this way. This is going to help me reach my goal this way. This might be a setback for me, and it might take me a little bit longer to get to my ultimate goal because of this reason. Don't let shiny object syndrome distract you from your goals, okay? And that's that thing that's bright and shiny and fancy, and you're like, oh, but this would be really cool to say I'm the supervisor of this, or I'm the team lead of that, I'm the manager, I'm the director. Don't get caught up in title, because it can derail you from where you actually want to be. You want to imagine the amount of people that I work with who tell me, oh, I've been working for 15 or 16 years and I kind of just fell into it. I kind of just did it because they asked me to. So along with that, when you're thinking about a new position, is it something that you would apply to on your own if no one asked you? And if it is, great. Maybe it's an opportunity that you didn't know existed, and it's exciting and it fits within your long-term goals, great. But if you're doing it just because you have a good relationship with your supervisor, your boss, or a friend, or a family friend, so you're taking this position just to please somebody else, then how is that really fitting into your long-term career goals? One thing that a lot of young professionals do is they'll move into a certain position or company, or they'll go to college and major in something, and then afterwards get a job in that field because it's something that their parents wanted them to do. So what they find themselves doing is being burned out and unfulfilled in that job because it's something that they're not interested in, and people end up in supervisory roles for the same reason. So I want to go over a couple of other questions that a few of you had before we get into a couple of negotiation strategies to help you if you're new. We've already talked about ways if you're in a position already, you've accepted that position, but you did not discuss a raise or you didn't get a raise. We've discussed strategies for you to go in and negotiate that. In just a second, we're going to talk about ways that you can negotiate for the things that you want before you accept a position, whether or not your company can afford to pay you a salary increase. Now, we want to make sure that we set the foundation so that you can get more of what you want. All right, so a couple of other questions that you all sent in prior to today's session was work-life balance. How do I find out tactfully what the work-life balance is going to be before I accept a position? Now, this is really important for a lot of people, whether you have a family or not. One of the folks who wrote in, again, I've condensed these questions. One of the folks who wrote in says, well, they told me that they wanted me to take this position because I don't have any kids and I can work holidays and weekends. And it just made me smile because you still have a life that you want to enjoy too, even though you don't have a family of your own just yet. So make sure you're really clear. Are you willing to sacrifice working on weekends and holidays, giving up some of your time to spend with your extended family members or friends? If it's something that you're okay with, great, go for it. But if it's something that's going to cause you anxiety and stress and you're going to be upset and sad about, then maybe this isn't the right position for you. So when you consider work-life balance and you want to ask that question tactfully, here are a few things that you can consider asking. Again, in all negotiation, research is your first step. The better prepared you are, knowing the factors that are involved with you accepting a position, the more that you can get what you want. And you can ask for those things in a manner that it presents it as a win-win for both parties, and you'll get the person who's offering you the job on your side to help you get more of the things that you want. So back to the work-life balance question. How do you get this information tactfully without saying, hey, I don't want to work too much? So one of the questions that I suggest asking is, how many special projects are there for this position? And special projects can mean different things. It can mean a special assignment. It can mean collaborating with a different group. Depending on your industry, use the industry lingo, but basically you want to find out about the extra work and pose it in the way, are there ever any extra assignments? Oh, there are? Wonderful. Can you tell me more about that? Now, is this once a week or is this once a year? Is this once a quarter, once a month? You want to nail down a time frame and then say, well, how long does it typically take to plan it? Because planning a special event can be a year long, or it can be a quick routine if it's something small. So you want to find out the scale. How many people are involved in this? Because the more people that you have involved planning a special event, the more time it's going to take because you're coordinating multiple schedules. Now, why is this important to a negotiation? It's important because the more information that you have going in, the better prepared you are to ask for things that will set you up for success. Whether it's resources, whether it's an additional budget, whether it's additional time, you want to know what you need to be successful and then negotiate the terms that you need so that you can nail it. So if one of your strong suits is planning and organization, then you definitely know you can hit it out of the park. Another question to ask in terms of work-life balance is, are supervisors ever on call? And if they're on call, what's the typical time frame? Is it 1 weekend a month? Is it a 12-hour shift? Is it once a week? Does it rotate? You want to find out those metrics up front. Do the new supervisors, do they have to work, the base shifts? How some folks say you have to work your way up. So you're going to be on call for the first 6 months as a new hire. That's something that you want to know, the on-call schedule. And again, this is different for industry to industry. So I'm just giving you some examples of what you need to look out for. One of the things that I find really common with the web developers that I work with is that when they're in beta, they're on call 24 hours a day. So if you're in that tech space where you're coding and developing and you're going to have a couple of beta projects rolling out in a year, you want to find out the on-call schedule for that, because that is considered a special project when you're in beta. Additionally, you'll want to find out, is there an opportunity for me to be off 1 weekend a month? This is really important. I work with a lot of clients in the entertainment industry, so they tend to work really long hours, from 9 in the morning to 1 and 2 in the to 9 a.m. to 1 or 2 a.m. So they're working extremely long hours consistently on a 7-day basis. Ask, is there ever an opportunity for me to be off 1 weekend a month or 1 weekend every other month, just so that you can have some work-life balance, understanding that that industry is an industry where you grind a lot and you're putting in a lot of hard hours, but ask questions up front to let them know, hey, I'm not looking to be off every weekend. I'm not looking to work a 9 to 5. I know that isn't the industry that I'm in, but I would like to be able to take 1 weekend off a month or every other month. So find something that's going to be agreeable for both of you. So those were the questions that folks wrote in. Again, I've condensed a lot of those questions. It was about 15 questions that we had in advance. And I've condensed those down just so that I can give you some nuggets. Now we're going to talk about ways to negotiate before you accept the position. So one of the first things that I want to encourage you to do is be well researched. Before you agree to accept a new position, talk to people within the company and within the industry to find out what's the standard workload for a supervisor. So whatever you're going to be accepting, whether it's managing a team, whether it's managing multiple teams, you want to find out if your team is going to be on site and if it's going to be virtual, and what's the infrastructure set up for you to work with your team if it's in a virtual setting, such as, is there instant chat? Is everyone on a VPN network where you have access to video streams similar to this? You want to find out the metrics that are going to set you up for success. The best way to do that is to talk to people. You also want to find out what are potential stumbling blocks. Earlier, I alluded to maybe you're working with a team of supervisors who don't necessarily get along with each other. That's something that you'll want to know, because if Sally, an accountant, typically turns in reports late to the marketing team, but you need the information from accounting to hit your metrics every month, you'll want to make sure that you're having that discussion with Sally very early on, or talking to your supervisor, so that you and Sally can get on the same page to get these reports in time so that you can do your job. The other thing is, find out who on the senior leadership within the organization supports you moving into a new role, and those people who are resisting it. The reason why this is important, because you need support and buy-in as you go in. What I mean by support and buy-in is you need to have the authority to make decisions. You don't need anyone coming behind you second guessing, or traditional chain of command where your supervisor is friends with your team members, the people that you're supervising. So your team bypasses you and goes to your supervisor for issues. You don't want any of that to happen, because that reduces your effectiveness. So make sure that you get the support and buy-in from your supervisor up front, but also find out who supports you moving into a supervisory role and who doesn't, so that you can have those side conversations, whether it's at happy hour, at a coffee, at lunch. Find out what it's going to take for you to set yourself up for success, so that there isn't this jump of chain of command and you're finding out about things afterwards, because that can be really frustrating, and you can get to a point where you're going to be burned out and you're not going to want to perform your best and hit the metrics set forward so that you can achieve your goals. Another thing that I'd like you to consider before accepting a position as a supervisor is, what are your team members paid on? I work with quite a few people who will find out that the people that they're supervising gets paid more than them, and this is a sore spot for them. So as much as possible, you want to gather this information up front to make sure that you're being compensated fairly. I mentioned checking the websites, pay scale, salary, glassdoor.com. So when you're checking that for yourself and you're going to be managing or supervising other people, pop in the data for them as well, just so that you know what they're making and you can make a well-informed decision. Now, the first line of research is always going to be to talk to people in the industry because they know the ins and outs. And again, you don't want to ask them for a direct number, ask them for a range. What can I expect to make in this range? Or I'm going to be managing a team of X, Y, and Z. Throw out some titles. What do people typically make in that? So that you know going in that you're being compensated fairly and you don't have to find out 6 months from now that the people you're supervising gets paid more than you, because that can put a really sour taste in your mouth, and sometimes that decreases people's motivation to work hard. Now, this was just a 30-minute session. We're going to be back next Wednesday talking about negotiation and the things that you need to move forward. One of the main things that I want you to take away from today's career strategy session is this. If you've already accepted a position where you're a supervisor or manager, but you did not get a raise, you can go back and renegotiate. So set up a meeting where you can find out what it's going to take for you to get that raise. You want to understand the metrics that you're going to be evaluated on, and you want to agree on a timeline to have this follow-up conversation. It doesn't have to be during a performance review. It can be when you nail a new client. And when I say nail a new client, I mean bring a new client in. Or when you actually hit a big company milestone. So whatever that's going to be for your industry, for your company, just get clear on that. The other thing that I want you to remember is you have to research. You cannot skip that research phase. The more information you have about the position you're going into, the work environment that you're going to be in, the better you will have a chance of asking for the things that will set you up for success. Now, money is a big part of that, but beyond money, there are things that you may need. An example, again, this is just a recap. Maybe you need equipment. Maybe your team needs training. Maybe you need to hire additional staff. And lastly, you want to make sure that you have that support and buy-in from senior leadership so that you have the authority to make the decisions that you need to make. So if you have questions, you can send them in to me. My email address is jvtwillie@jacquelinetwillie.com. I will be sending a recap for this on the blog. It's going to post on jacquelinetwillie.com on the podcast section. I'll also do a podcast episode on a similar topic so you can listen to this information again. And next Wednesday, I'm going to start off by answering questions just like I did today. Thanks for spending a little time on your lunch break with me. And until next time, I want to remind you to emulate excellence and eliminate excuses.